So I got a finished product headliner here. I like the way it turned out. I did a few things quite differently off of numerous hints that I've gotten from researching this. I figured I'd go over some of the major pointers on this just to guarantee success. I noticed a lot of the YouTubers doing the headliners. There's a few things that they're leaving out, so I just figured I'd go over this in detail, and I'd rather just tell you honestly than show you, because I just don't have the time to do that kind of footage. But anyway, you know, I use this 3M High Strength 90. Works great. Highly recommended across the headlining community. So it's a good product. Start there. Then I would say, you know, your material that you choose, you want to find something that's got a little bit of spandex to it, maybe 10%, 5%, somewhere in there. That's going to help you get into these dimpled areas and shit like that. You know, you don't want it coming off. You really want to make sure it's attached in there. And if you use a more stretchy material, forgiving material, it's going to help you get there a lot easier than normal. This is something that doesn't have hardly any stretch to it whatsoever, but I had to have this material, so I figured it was worth the extra effort to get it in there and make it happen. So when you start out, you're going to want to start out by removing these steel clips. All you're going to do is bend this tab right here down and out. You bend all four of them out of your way in towards this center point, obviously, and then just pull it out. And once you get all those out, you're going to want to remove the material that's on it, obviously, and just, I use the wire brush, but you know, you'll remove the fabric itself off. Yours may already be coming off or falling right off, but the foam that's behind that has to come off with a wire brush. So get that completely clean. You know, I used a really hardcore wire brush, a really aggressive one. It worked really well. So then from there, just to finish off the prepping of the actual headliner, just go over all these electrical connectors with some tape, because when you spray it, you're not going to want to hit any of those. It really just sticks to everything and it makes a nightmare. So, you know, that's really the only thing you want to protect, I would say. Everything else you shouldn't have to worry about. So once you get your fabric all chose, everything's good with that, just lay it over it. Cut your square out or whatever you got and drape it over it. Get it all centered, all perfect. And you want to just dry fit it to make sure everything's working and that you can get the alignment you want. So I cut off around the excess, you know, maybe 6 inches or something like that, just to make sure you got plenty to work with. And once you do that, and once you're done dry fitting it and you're cozy with it, then you're going to want to throw it in the dryer. And let's see here. Yeah, dry it just to get out any of the wrinkles, because those wrinkles really turn out to be a bitch when you're gluing it. So make sure it's all smooth and perfect, good to go. But then what you'll do is you'll come back in and get it dry fit again to where it's all cozy and perfect where you want it. Well, hold up, actually, I back up a second here. You're gonna have to mark your center points. This is the center point I used on mine, which I have a GTI Golf. I would imagine everybody's is about the same, but then there's a center point up here. It's just a little hole for, I don't even know what that is, a little plastic piece. But anyway, mark your center points good and proper on either end of this thing, and then do a nice, you know, nice long one in the center so you know where that center point is. And then you'll want to lay down your fabric, dry fit it again, get it cozy just where you want it. All I did was eyeballed it from my center point down, you know. I mean, it didn't end up perfect, of course, but, you know, when you're up close to it, you can't see that little tiny bit of curvature. So anyway, get those center points marked up, and then what you'll do is you'll fold half of it over to the other side, find that center point here, and just double it over. And then from there, you'll spray it So make sure you shake the crap out of that stuff and spray it really close, up close, like 4 inches away, something like that. And try to spray somewhat smooth, so keep your hand moving constantly and try to cover huge long sweeps if you can. It's pretty, you got to put some effort into it. And get the fabric after you're done detailing this. I found, you know, just to be efficient, I wanted to spray the headliner itself first so I can get these details. And I even started on the back side because it's got a lot less to it. So it's a good place to start because you can get through it really fast compared to the front here with all this detail. So start in the back, you know, fold your material over, spray the crap out of it, spray the material, all of it, go overboard. That way you make sure that you're, I'm not saying like spray a bunch of glue on there. I'm just saying make sure that you really cover every edge of the fabric so that if it ends up being somewhere where you didn't predict, you know, like you don't want to run out or get too close to the edge, I guess is what I'm saying. So once you get that half sprayed, you're going to want to wait like 10 minutes, something like that. Keep touching it with your finger. When you touch it with your finger, it should be very, very tacky, but it should not stick to your finger. So, you know, you check the dimpled areas and stuff like that. You can usually tell just by looking at it, it looks wet, but you do not want to install this while that stuff's wet. Like I said, it has to be tacky, but it's not going to stick to your finger. That's when it's ready to apply. And if you don't, what's going to happen is this little area right here is where the glue bled through because it was still wet. I think it's the only screw up I had on here, but you know, you don't want that bleeding through like that. So anyway, make sure that the glue is dry before you apply it. I can't stress that enough. And so you're gonna basically do like a phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 on this. So, you know, after you did your half, just lay it down, get it onto your center point. This stuff's really easy to work with. If you mess up, you can pick it back up again for the most part. So drape it back down exactly where you had it when you dry fit it. Get it perfect, and then, you know, work the center point here, and then work your way out from that, obviously, you know. And then with these dimples, don't even touch them at first. You want to lay the whole material, the fabric, over first, because if you don't, it's gonna put curvature through the lines here. So on this back side, when you're doing it, just lay it over this oh shit handle dimple and this hole. Don't worry about any of that stuff yet. You have to get it attached first. And so this first phase, we just want to get it to the headliner face, basically. And then so drape your other half over, spray everything on that, get everything sprayed really good. They even say on the can 2 or 3 coats might be needed. I didn't find that necessary at all. I just put a fairly heavy coat on to both the fabric and the headliner. And then same thing, I draped it back when I was ready and the glue was dry. And then I worked my center point over to here. And, you know, work just the flat part of this headliner first. And then from there, once it's completely attached all the way to these ends, all the way over here, then work on your visor area and stuff like that. And don't worry about any of these holes. Just lay it over and get it dried, and then get these dimples worked lastly. Of course, you want to do this oh shit handle first. Get that out of the way. It's nice and easy. It's not a bad deal. Don't worry about these inner dimples where the oh shit handle actually attaches. Just worry about this bigger part here where the whole thing rests. And same in here. Don't worry about these little guys yet. And so from there, once that's, you know, you've massaged it, this whole process should take a bit because you really want to keep going back over it and massaging it and making sure. You don't want to just leave it alone and walk away because you'll find little areas that didn't completely attach. I found using a heat gun was very helpful in spots where it felt like it was dried up and I couldn't get it to reattach. You hit it with a heat gun and it kind of gets that fabric back into that glue and helped a lot. From there, we're just gonna flip this guy over, and you know, when you go to fold this over, it's got glue all over it from the first time that you sprayed it. Just ignore that, and then it's gonna be draped over. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna come up to these corners and cut them like this, the fabric, and actually get it fairly close so that when you fold it over, these parts don't run into each other. And then see, like in this bend, you have to do a relief cut, otherwise the fabric will not wrap around there. And you're really just gonna do a bunch of relief cuts around the perimeter of it. And don't forget, there's trim pieces that cover all these edges, so don't worry about it if you make a little boo-boo. Odds are it might get covered up. So this would be phase 2. So you're gonna spray the fabric again as it's draped over, the excess fabric, after you cut all these areas out here. Drape it over, spray it, spray the edge of the actual headliner, and do this all this outer perimeter as your phase 2. Go around these, you know, you just got to relief cut it everywhere where it's necessary, basically in these corners, outside corners and inside corners, both need relief. And then as your phase 3, you'll cut, you know, basically a half an X on each end of the square, and then cut a straight line across to that half X from your corners, you know, and that's what it ends up being. So once you spray that in, while it's still fresh, you can put this metal clip back in and bend it back in. And then for your oh shit handles, you're just gonna do the same thing. You know, I cut basically not really an X, but I just cut this way and then this way, you know, and then I relieved it right here and right here. Did the same thing, folded it over, glued it. But that would be your phase 3. So it's important that you do everything in phases, because you don't want to try and rush through this and do all this at once. Everything's still going to be wet, and you run the hazard of moving things around and adjusting it while everything's still wet. So I've been taking my sweet time with it. It came out really great. I love it. I've done quite a few headliners, and I've never had them come out this great, so I really wanted to share the good info, and I hope it's really helpful to everybody else. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments, and thanks a bunch for watching.